Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to this night-ending bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button. Takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to tonight's night-ending bonus upload, shall we? Okay, guys, so as many of you who have been with the channel know, I have a rather obsession, hopefully healthy obsession, with the missing 411 case of Tom Messick in upstate New York, where I live. I grew up in the Adirondacks. I have never left except once to move to Florida for 3 months. And the Adirondacks called me back. Also, I have an obsession about deep underground military bases and the tunnel systems that connect them all together, as well as the crimes against humanity that have occurred down there, whether it be genetic mutations, and just a list of things far too disgusting to even talk about right now. But I got this email from the fellow who has been sharing information with me, and yeah, there's some maps out there that connect deep underground military bases on Google. And but what I just got the other day was this pretty comprehensive list of experiences and bases that exist underground, and the tunnel systems that connect them all together. It's funny, when I said the G word, my phone kicked on. So I'm probably going to talk a little bit about that later today, maybe tomorrow, because it's pretty in-depth, but it talks about Nightmare Hall. And for those of you who do not know what Nightmare Hall is, it is probably the most grotesque floor of Dulce, probably the most grotesque part of a building that exists in the United States, possibly the world, because of all of the atrocities that have occurred there. And they are ranging from what a tame mind could think to a deranged one could, and even further, what the 1% government, Bilderberg, along with the alien agenda, the Draconian, the Reptilians, and Greys have conducted on humanity. So I think we'll touch base on that probably later today, but more than likely tomorrow, because it is in depth and I really want to spend some time with it. And I hope that you guys enjoy this as much as I do, because it really does fascinate me. And maybe I'll do a poll and see if you guys do like this stuff as much as I do. But right now, why we're here for some really creepy, real encounters. Let's get into them. Today's first encounter. So I'm 40 years old now, but this happened almost 20 years ago. I was born and raised in the Florida Panhandle, and this is where it occurred. To be exact, the Quinette Road right at the bridge crossing the Escambia River on the west side of this bridge. It was around 2:30 in the morning. The area is more built up now, but back then it was just a long road with no street lights. If you look up on Google Earth, there is a wildlife management area, and the river runs all the way to the Pensacola Bay going south. If you also look on that map, the heavily wooded area around the river runs all the way north to Georgia and the Florida National Forest. As I'm coming down the road I headed west, I saw something on the driver's side of the road. In the distance, I had no idea what I was looking at, but it looked like some sort of animal of some sort. As I got closer, I didn't want to hit it if it tried to cross, so I stopped maybe 100 feet away from it. When I stopped, it started to move on all four diagonally across, but I was looking at this thing. I was in shock at how large it was. It was also oddly colored for an animal for this area. Yeah, there are black bear in the area, but this was much larger, and it was dark, dingy gray colored fur. As it crossed the road to my passenger side, it stood up, and I have never experienced a level of emotion ever. It was a primal type fear and shock. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing, but I knew I stood no chance against this thing if it decided to attack. And it was just standing there looking at me. I'm frozen because here I am staring at this werewolf. It had to be at least 7 feet tall. I'm not great with weight, but maybe 600 pounds. Orangish yellow eyes. When it disappeared into the tree line, I stomped on the gas and got away from where it was as fast as I could. I've never shared this encounter for several years. I just recently started talking about it. I looked, and Dogman is pretty much the only creature that matches what I saw that night. Alright guys, today's second encounter. I currently live in Massachusetts. I live near Boston, but was going on a road trip with a buddy of mine and his family, out to their new place in a more remote part of the state, Franklin County to be exact. My friend's name is Mike, and we are both 17 years old. We got to their new house, and I was planning on staying for about a week to help Mike get settled in and just check out the surrounding area. At the edge of their property, they have these woods that start off with just a few trees here and there. But after a 5-minute walk, it gets real thick. On the third day of me being there, Mike's mom said she wanted to give us a day off so we could do whatever we wanted. At first, we wandered around the property and hung around the house. And then we chose to walk to the closest town, which takes 30 minutes. The town's small, and there's not a lot to do, but I'm happy just being back in a place like this that I've lived for most of my life. Small and in the middle of nowhere. We talked to the owner of this ice cream parlor, and he gave us a bit of history on the town, nothing too important or exciting. After that, we went back to the house. We got back at around noon. I suggested we go for a walk in the woods. Now, Mike is not an outdoorsy type. Said no, but after a couple of minutes of me nagging, he agreed. Even though I go out all the time, I walk and camp on trails, I've always have a pocket knife with me when I go on outings like this, so I ran in the house to grab it. We started into the woods, leaving this real obvious trail. Like I said, it's pretty thick. At first, Mike spends his time grumbling like there are too many bugs, it's too hot. Keep in mind, it's the last couple of days of October. After a while, he starts to enjoy being outside and actually said he liked it and wanted to go further into the woods. By now, it's about 4:30, and it was starting to get dark, but I really didn't care at all that much. We kept going, and dark fell rapidly to the point where we could not see. We started on our way back, but at some point we got separated. I noticed this and turned the flashlight app on my phone spinning around to see if I could see Mike. I couldn't. "Mike," I called out. "Can you hear me? If you can, say something." I waited for a few minutes. Later off, to my right, I heard this feeble stammer. "Joe." Joe is my name. It sounded just like Mike. I quickly turned in the direction of the noise and slowly walked towards it. I didn't see anything, so I moved my light horizontally to try and spot anything. I called out again, "Mike!" and got a Joe in response. It was much stronger and louder this time. I walked forward with much more confidence, but stopped dead in my tracks as I heard something large moving very quickly through the brush just to my right. I whipped around frantically and came face to face with Mike. At first, I was stunned. I had heard him in the opposite direction. Up to this point of my life, I had only encountered one creature that I know of with another buddy, and we were together when it happened, so this situation was definitely new to me. "Why did you walk behind me like that? Why didn't you come from the same direction as your voice?" I practically was yelling at him. I was overcome with anger that he was trying to trick me like that. "I heard you call my name, and I started walking to you. You sounded scared or hurt at first, but after a few minutes, you started saying my name normally. Then you stopped answering my calls. I heard you from behind me and saw your light, so I started running towards you," he explained. There was a faint noise of movement behind us, and I turned around to see a horrible sight not 10 feet from us. Its head looked like a wolf, like the kind you would see at the zoo. It was maybe 6.5 feet tall. Its head, shoulders, arms, and chest were covered in a thick gray fur. Its legs and most of its stomach held a much thinner pelt of the same fur. The eyes were reddish. Both Mike and I saw this creature and ran faster than I thought we could. For whatever reason, the creature didn't give chase, but we made it out of the forest without incident. Mike told his family, who of course didn't believe him. Now, I didn't tell mine because I knew they weren't going to believe me. Mike has not gone back into those woods since this day has occurred, nor has he seen that beast again. My only question is, Dogman or shapeshifter or mimic? What do you think? I've heard of mimics. I don't know how to label them in a list, like Skinwalker, even though they are in Navajo land, and Bearwalker, I would label them as a shapeshifter. Dogman, obviously Dogman. Werewolf, I'd still list that and categorize that in with Dogman and Bigfoot, large, hairy, bipedal creature. But mimics, I've heard of them, and to me, the experiences that I've heard, they seem to come from or are seen around areas that may have a portal, usually really deep off into the woods. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. It's definitely creepy, though. On to today's third encounter. Hey everyone, I believe I saw a cryptid that most people refer to as a dogman or a werewolf in the New Jersey Pine Barrens. When I received my license at 17, I started spending a lot of free time outdoors, hiking all over the East Coast, but mostly within the Jersey Pine Barrens. I worked as a naturalist at the Batstow Village in the Wharton State Forest for just a while, which is the biggest state forest within the Pine Barrens. I got the job before my internship ended due to my knowledge of plants and animals. They did not expect me to have the credentials because at the time I had not even finished my first semester of college. I only share that info because when I do see animals in the woods day or night, I am pretty certain of what I am looking at. And after almost 6 years from the time of this happening, I still cannot wrap my head around the creature I saw that night. I'm an open-minded person to a point. I do believe certain cryptids could exist solely if the biology of the creature is possible, but that does not put a bipedal canine on my list. Roughly 6 years ago, I, along with 2 friends, went off-roading in my friend Alan's truck, somewhere in Manchester, New Jersey. We met a bunch of Alan's off-roading buddies in a spot they frequented. I don't know the specific area, only that it was in Manchester, New Jersey, and it was pretty close to the general vicinity of the abandoned brick factory, and hung out for a few hours driving around the dirt trails and just having a good time socializing with other people. I did not have any alcohol or marijuana in my system because after we left I'd have to drive myself home, so I was sober along with my friend Alan, who was also sober, but our friend Chris was a bit high. We were beginning to leave, and as we are taking the trails to get back to the main road, my friend Alan told me to help look out for deer. He was driving roughly 35 miles an hour on a dirt path, and it was pretty open, maybe 30-ish feet wide, and we were dead in the middle, just in case he needed time to respond to a deer jumping from the tree line. A few minutes go by, and my eyes spot a deer running alongside the truck, but within the tree line, so the view of it wasn't more than a dark brown patch. As I am saying something to my friend Alan, thinking, that is a deer going to run in front of the car and try to end its life. It speeds up its pace significantly. It gets maybe 20 feet ahead of the truck, still in the tree line, and then proceeds to jump in front of the truck. For as long as I live, I will never forget what I saw that night. It ran onto its back legs, looked right at us, and to my horror, it ran by this about 30-foot wide trail in 2 to 3 steps and went into the opposite tree line. In those few seconds, I saw this creature, and to this day, I cannot forget what I saw. It was roughly 7 feet tall, covered in dark brown fur. Every inch of its body I saw was covered in this dark brown fur, but the chest and stomach area had less fur and a lighter coloring than the rest of its body. But even under all of that fur, you could make out the extreme muscle definition, very similar to an Olympic bodybuilder. It also had canine-type head with a long snout, 2 distinct, perked wolf-like ears, very muscular legs. The torso and arms were similar to that of a very muscular man with large hands. The hands had visible claws that looked like they could do some real damage, and its eyes reflected an unnatural color of light that I hadn't seen in the animal kingdom. As soon as it jumped into the opposing tree line, my friend Alan slammed on the brakes, and my friend Chris said, "I know I'm high, but what the hell was that?" My friends, puzzled by what we had just seen, looked at me and said, "Okay, nature boy, tell us what that was. Give us something explainable." I sat there dumbfounded and told them that I didn't have an answer based on reason, science, or anything I could logically think of. My friend Alan hightailed it out of there. To this day, my friend Chris has been convinced that it was not a hallucination because of the weed, My other friend Alan, who does not believe in the supernatural and absolutely refuses to have an open mind, doesn't speak about the event and pretends it didn't happen. To this day, I still have no logical explanation for what I saw. I do not believe that a bipedal canine creature could biologically exist, but what I saw was something matching that description with my own eyes, and it was very much real. So, how he explains that creature running through the woods is exactly how I imagine what these creatures were doing running through the woods when I had my encounter. Because the woods where my encounter happened, the woods are thick and just, full of debris from cleaning out the land that they were building these houses and the cul-de-sac road on. And these things just moved with ease through that little bit of woods. So I can just imagine what he's in the back of the truck watching and he sees what he thinks is a deer. And then he sees it pick up its pace, shoot across the road, land bipedally, and then run more. Yeah, I'm done. I'm not going to the Pine Barrens ever again. Today's next encounter. I decided that I would share some of my granddad's experiences he told me and my brother about the time he worked as a forester in the Manistee region of Michigan. He never had a chance to write any of this down, so I decided I would. For a little background, Granddad started working in the Manistee area in 1949 when he was 28 years old. Before then, he was just drifting around the region, doing odd jobs and logging until he was hired by the Forest Service in the northwestern part of Michigan's Lower Peninsula. The work, as I understood, was slow, and most days he and his crew were sent to different parts of the forest to address various tree and land concerns. Granddad was an avid outdoorsman. He enjoyed hunting and fishing just about as much as anyone who lived in the area. Sadly, Granddad died in '98. Well, I was still rather young, but I remember whenever we went to visit him and Grandma, he would sit my brother and I down and tell us about the days in the Forest Service. Working outside every day allowed him to witness all sorts of wildlife, like black bear, whitetail, fox, and even bobcat. He often relived his encounters with bear while he was deep in the forest, telling us that those moments were some of the most memorable of his life, being up close to such a beautiful and powerful animal. Usually, his tales were exciting, and the euphemism with which he told them inspired us to go out into the backyard and look for animals in between the pines. Although there wasn't much wildlife around Grandma and Grandpa's property, they still always kept a close eye on us and never let us wander too far from the house. Finally, a few years before he died, Granddad deemed my brother and me old enough and told us why. I was about 9, my brother 11, when Granddad first opened up about the strangest things that he experienced out there. All our childhoods we had heard him go on and on about the peace that the wilderness brought to him or used to bring to him, but this time his tone was completely different. I don't remember all of the details, but I asked my brother to help piece together Granddad's story, and my dad as well. He too had heard the experiences in question multiple times. It was the mid-50s. He never gave an exact year, and October had rolled in behind the cool autumn breeze and the sound of the Canadian geese flying southward. The first of his strange experiences had occurred at night, as he was driving home from a local bar where he and his crew spent the last few hours after work. It was a windy night, and the pines on either side of the road were blowing ferociously. No moon or stars could be seen through the thick cloud cover, so the only illumination on the road ahead came from Granddad's headlights. By his reckoning, he must have been going close to 50 miles an hour at that very moment when something huge leapt across the road not 20 feet ahead of him. His headlights had shown the animal's silhouette, and it was dog-shaped but massive, almost stretching all the way across the road. It only made one bound to get to the other side, and its size alone was enough to unnerve my granddad. At the time, he had assumed that this animal was just a large wolf, except timber wolves hadn't been spotted in the region for decades. He considered it a bizarre encounter, but nothing came of it that night, and he was able to return home without anything else strange happening to him. The second of his experiences admittedly frightened me enough to avoid going outside at night for years. Even now, I'm weary about noises in the dark because of the obvious fear in Granddad's voice when he told us his second experience. Some details here were provided by Dad. It occurred in the same month as his first encounter. A few weeks later, on the night that it was pretty cold for the season, it must have hit 40 degrees. But it was a calm night with little wind. Granddad's house at the time was real small, and it stood in a lot with about 6 other similar-sized and built guys. None of his neighbors tended to stay up very late, so it surprised him to be awakened by loud noises at about 1 in the morning. They sounded like scratching on sheet metal with an occasional thump and bump, like an animal was trying to get in. Granddad apparently got up, fetched his flashlight, and put his boots on, and out into the front room, the walls of which consisted of mosquito screens stretched between wooden frames. Once in the front room, Granddad could only hear the sounds more clearly, and they were coming from the nearest neighbor's home, maybe 50 yards to the right. It was incredibly dark out there, no street lights to illuminate. The neighbor's house had a porch light on, but Granddad could not make out what was creating the racket through the screen. So he slowly opened the front door and looked out. He described it to us in great detail. The animals that he saw there, and he always said he would remember them exactly as they were, for fear burns memories the strongest. 3 massive dogs covered in long black fur were up against his neighbor's house, scratching at the siding and make visible claw marks with every swipe. Each beast stood around 7 feet tall, with their front legs stretching from another 2 feet easily, reaching the roof and gutter of the house. Their scratching, however, did not make it seem like they were trying to get in, as Grandpa explained. He thought they were doing that to whoever was inside. The next part was actually the hardest to get out of Granddad. It was strange that he was so eager to tell us everything thus far, despite how he felt about the subject. But he was rather hesitant, as I remember, to divulge the last horrifying details of his encounter. He claims that the animals then noticed that he had emerged from his home just across the lawn, for each one turned to look straight at him just 50 yards away. They had pointed ears, just like a wolf's, with huge body, and that rivaled the largest of the black bear in the area. They also supported themselves with long legs. They also supported themselves not with 4 legs like any other native animal, but instead they stood on their hind legs, towering 7 feet above the ground. The sounds that they proceed to make, Granddad had said, would haunt his dreams for the rest of his life. It was a shame that he could neither reproduce or record this unwolf-like scream these creatures made, for that detail always fascinated me the most. They didn't sound like fox, coyote, or bobcat. Instead, they forced half scream, half howls out of their jaws that Granddad was sure held the teeth of a carnivore. Granddad never told us exactly what happened next. I guess we assumed he ran inside and locked the doors and didn't look outside until morning. He would tell us that 4 of his neighbors, including the elderly couple that lived in the nearest house that was under attack, did not stick around very long. He did say that he tried to talk to them about what had happened that night, but they remained evasive and never gave him any straight answers. They turned out to be somewhat ironic because Granddad himself kept tight-lipped about many details of his stories. He would say that he heard those exact screams on 2 other occasions, both times while he was in the Manistee Forest. And he showed us the old Forest Service report detail a possible timber wolf sighting in the area, complete with photographs of large paw prints in the mud. The thing is, Granddad never told anyone his stories, but his most trusted family, which is unique among Michigan Dogman witnesses. After the craze that Steve Cook's legendary song stirred in the 80s, it's no wonder that so many stories from the region surfaced. I had heard a few bits and pieces about the so-called monster before Granddad told us his tale, but it wasn't until later in life that I realized his encounters had to have been with a dogman. Whether I believe him that massive wolves walked upright through the Michigan forests, well, I'm still not so sure, but as a modern zoological curiosity, the stories of strange beasts from a passionate woodsman who knew his wildlife certainly remain among the most remarkable I have heard, simply because of the genuine emotion in which he relayed his tales. Legends like these remain just a figment of our collective imagination. So all you can do is present what I've heard and let others judge for themselves what is real and what is not. Anyway, as the song goes, don't go out at night. And tonight's final encounter. First, here's a little bit of backstory. English is not my first language, and for the largest part of my life I lived in Greece and recently moved to Canada. In Greece, we did not have tales of cryptids or any other sinister beings, so if I say something incorrect, it's probably because lack of information and knowledge. I started riding my motorcycle to Ontario at around 10 p.m., a 7-hour trip from where I lived. Roughly halfway through the trip, I guess 1 a.m, the fuel tank was empty. Now I need to note that I was sure the tank was full before I left, so this is real weird. I called 911 since I didn't know who to call at that time, and the dispatcher said that although I shouldn't call for this kind of issue, she'd send someone to help. I apologized and thanked her. The place I stopped was a straight road with trees on either side, a forest. I was near French River Provincial Park. When the conversation ended, I noticed something extremely weird. Extreme silence, as if everything around me had died. The crickets that were previously getting on my nerves had stopped. The owls were nowhere to be heard. Then I heard this dog cry from inside the woods. It was extremely distinct, since it was the only thing I could hear. I do love dogs. I slowly and hesitantly started making my way into the woods to see if the dog was hurt. I was approaching, and I could hear crying louder with each step. Then I stopped. The crying was now taking place in front of me, but then I stopped, and instead of crying, the sound that I could hear now was an aggressive growl behind me. I turned around and saw it. It was not a dog, not a wolf, nor a bear. In fact, it was nothing like I'd ever seen before. Maybe 8 feet tall with a dog face. I literally crapped my pants. My survival instinct kicked in, and I immediately started running back to my bike. I was crying as a result of being so terrified. I finally made my way back to the road, and I saw a fire truck with 2 firemen. They asked if I was okay, but I couldn't say a word. I was shivering. When I was finally able to talk, I told them everything. They said that this is a common thing there, and that rangers had been looking for... They said that this thing is a common thing, and that the rangers had been looking for that creature for more than a decade. They checked my bike, and when they looked at the fuel tank, they saw claw marks all over it. They took me with them to help me with my motorcycle. I am completely traumatized and still can't explain what I saw. That's the reason I share this experience with you, to see if anyone else had any similar experiences. So, usually on these experiences, not usually, that's the wrong word, there's been times that there's more than one. And I think that whatever was out in the woods like whining was calling him in tactically. And then the other one came from behind. Was this night ending bonus. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories, judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.